What is up? GoodMicWork commentaries back at you with episode 465. I am your host, Greg Morgan, up here to give you your Raw and SmackDown reviews for October 30th and 31st, 2017, and we will also be discussing all of the build that we are currently experiencing to the Survivor Series pay-per-view coming up on the WWE Network in just a few weeks. In addition to that, I'm also going to be giving you some opinions on the big Raw 25th anniversary show that was just announced a few days ago, and the three big releases that took place over the weekend in WWE involving Emma, Darren Young, and Summer Rae. And as we go through the commentary here, I'm sure I will be getting into a whole bunch of other topics as well. So before we get into our Raw and SmackDown reviews, I just want to thank everybody right off the bat who turned out last Sunday for my first ever live YouTube stream. I came up and did a Q&A, kind of a test run, just some practice to see how this goes, what kind of audience I can draw, and what kind of a reaction I can get. I didn't really advertise this much in advance. I know I mentioned something about it in my last episode, but I did not tell you guys when or where I was going to be doing this. So on Sunday, I realized that I was kind of home alone. I had nothing going on. I had the day off, and I was like, you know what? Today would be a perfect day to come up here for a little test run. So I made the announcement on Twitter about an hour or two before, and I had a really good turnout. I cannot thank you guys enough. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. I cannot believe how much you guys enjoyed this new channel idea. This is just a way to evolve the channel. This is something new to do, some new content to give you guys. My normal commentary schedule will not change. I will be up here every week in podcast form discussing the current product and the current shows, but I've been thinking for a long time about doing things to evolve the channel and help it grow. And this live streaming idea, a lot of people are doing it, and I've never delved into it before. So finally, I taught myself how to do it, learned a little bit about it, and I need to start coming up here more often because the more I do, the more practice I get, and the better these videos will be. I had only intended for it to go about an hour. I ended up talking for 2.5 hours with all of you. By the way, the link is right up there in the top right-hand corner of the screen if you want to check that out. It was a lot of fun. I answered Twitter questions. I talked to you guys in the chat. There was about 300 people at a time listening to the Q&A. I think the current views on it are around 5,000 or 6,000 right now. But I was really impressed and really surprised how many people turned out live for this, considering that I didn't really advertise it at all. All I did was mention on something on social media about an hour beforehand. So I think the audience will actually get bigger than that if I announce something in advance, like in a previous commentary. Hey, tune into the YouTube channel this Sunday at 5 p.m. or 8 p.m. or whatever for another Q&A. So I will do my best to try to advertise it more. But a lot of times with my current life and my schedule, I don't really know when I'm going to be home that far in advance. So many of these Q&As may have to be decided on the fly, and I might only be able to give you guys a few hours notice at the most on social media. So it's very important that you follow me on Twitter at GoodMicWork if you have not yet already, and also give my Facebook page a like and check out my website, GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com. I will be making announcements about future Q&As on those sites if I am unable to do it in my previous episode. So I just want to thank everybody again. I just sat here and shot the shit with you guys, opened up a few beers, and we just chatted. There was really no format to it. I was basically just answering questions. It was a lot of fun, and I think they're only going to get better. You know, once I get used to this idea, you know, streaming is not hard, but I'm still kind of new to figuring out the software and where to look. For those of you who did tune in on Sundays, you did see that I had like 3 computers going. I was all over the place. I was reading questions on multiple monitors, and I was a mess. So it took me a little while to kind of settle down and get into my groove, but ultimately I think the video turned out very well. Let's now move in to Raw and SmackDown Live. I am actually recording this commentary as the World Series is on, Game 7 right now. The Houston Astros have jumped out to an early 5-0 lead. It's looking like the Astros are going to walk away with this World Series trophy, but anything can happen, and luckily for me, I really don't care who wins. I think I'm kind of rooting for the Houston Astros because Justin Verlander just got traded over there. He's a former Detroit Tiger. I'm from Detroit. Detroit made it to a few World Series with him on the team, and they lost. So for his sake, I would love for that guy to get a ring. He's more than earned it, and he's an awesome pitcher, so I'm kind of rooting for Houston just for Justin Verlander, but really at the end of the day, I'm not going to care who wins this. I just hope that this game doesn't turn out to be boring, and it doesn't turn out to be a Houston blowout. Raw this week was okay. There was a lot about the show that I did enjoy, but there was a lot about the show that also bothered me. One of the main things that bothered me is the terrible acting in some of these segments. I mean, we all know that wrestlers can't act for shit anyway, but a couple of these segments were so over the top bad that it just made me cringe a little bit. Before I get into Raw, actually, I do want to mention the Raw 25th anniversary show that was announced over the weekend as well. Big show coming up on January 22nd, I believe, 2018. It will be the 25th anniversary celebration of Monday Night Raw. And get this, they're going back to the Manhattan Center. They're going to be at the Barclays Arena and the Manhattan Center simultaneously. And the Manhattan Center is a big building in Manhattan where it's a big production studio and there's several stages and several concert halls in there. That's where Raw first emanated from back in 1993. Their first few months was all from the Manhattan Center. And it was that small, intimate arena. I think Hammerstein is over there as well. It's a lot like that, maybe even smaller. I think only held about 1,000 people. But that's where Raw was broadcast from for the first few months of its existence. And I love those days. I miss those days a lot. So I think it's really cool that the WWE is going to be going back there. They can't hold a 2017 Monday Night Raw in that building, so I understand that why they have to stay over at Barclays. But for them to do a few things over at the Manhattan Center, I don't know what those are going to be. I don't know if they're going to have a ring set up in there or if they're going to make it look like it used to back in 1993. I think that would be really cool. Maybe have 1 or 2 matches over there, and the rest of the show, all the big angles on Monday Night Raw. Maybe throw a women's match, a cruiserweight match, or something else over at the Manhattan Center, or they can just use it for vignettes or promos, or I don't know what the hell they're going to do. But it seems kind of interesting right now, especially when you see who is announced for this show. So far, we've got Shawn Michaels and, get this, The Undertaker making appearances at this show next year. Now, I don't know what to make of this Undertaker thing. I'm hoping that this is just a nostalgia return. I'm hoping it's just an appearance by The Undertaker to celebrate the 25 years of Monday Night Raw. Same thing with Shawn Michaels. I really don't want The Undertaker to return to the ring. I know WWE has teased it a lot. I know Roman Reigns has mentioned all year long, he won't shut the fuck up about it, about how he retired The Undertaker at WrestleMania 33. A lot of people have been speculating that Undertaker could return and get revenge on Roman Reigns. And the way The Undertaker went out with the jacket and the hat in the ring, the way he made all of us cry, for fuck's sake, he made me cry. And when I think about that and all of the emotion surrounding his final match, that's really the best way for his career to end at this point. How is he going to come back and end it any better than that? A guy like The Undertaker is going to put over the next big thing on his way out the door. Like Roman Reigns or not, he's the young guy on the roster. He's the big dog. He's the chosen one. He's the next John Cena. He's going to be the one to main event WrestleMania after WrestleMania after WrestleMania in the future. It makes a lot of sense for The Undertaker to lose to him on the way out. If Undertaker comes back and has another match with Roman and winds up beating him, what's the point? Even if that's The Undertaker's last match again, even if he goes out on top this time and has a victory to ride off into the sunset, I don't know if I would really appreciate that. The Undertaker has got so much respect. He's a locker room leader. He's an icon. He is the godfather of the WWE. A guy like that needs to lose on his way out the door. And I just don't know how I feel about The Undertaker returning and potentially having another match. We've been saying for the last 5, 6, maybe even 7 years that this guy should be retiring. For him to come back now, I think would be a huge mistake. I have no problem with him appearing on television at all. He can come back, he can make some appearances. Even if he has to choke slam someone somewhere, that would be fine. Maybe he can get involved and make an appearance whenever Kane has his last match. There's also the issue and the talk of the Hall of Fame next year. Who is going to headline next year's Hall of Fame? To me, I can only think of 2 names that would be suitable headliners. Forget just being in the Hall of Fame. There's lots of guys that can go in. But who is going to headline? Who is going to close out the Hall of Fame? To me, it comes down to either Goldberg or The Undertaker. Those are really the only 2 guys. So I think Undertaker coming back and maybe being inducted into the Hall of Fame would be wonderful. And same goes with Goldberg. If he came back and got into the Hall of Fame this year and he became the closer and the headliner, that would be fine too if they did not go with Undertaker. But, as far as Taker wrestling again and returning and being a part of storylines, I don't want him to. I've watched The Undertaker's career for 25 years. I watched his debut match live. I watched him in WCW. I have watched him way before his Undertaker days. I have had a lot of Mark Calloway in my life, and I respect the fuck out of that guy's career. And I just really don't want him to come back and potentially ruin it. I'm not saying he will. If The Undertaker came back, maybe it would be great. Maybe I'm selling him short. Maybe I'm shitting on the idea of a return match. And maybe he comes back and it turns out to be one of the greatest things we've ever seen. So I'm not saying that can't happen. But if it was up to me, I personally do not want to see The Undertaker wrestle again. That's just my opinion. But as far as the 25th anniversary show next year goes, it should be a lot of fun, and hopefully some major things will go down on that show. I believe that is going to be the Go Home Raw to the Royal Rumble. I think the Royal Rumble in Philly is the following week or the next Sunday after that. So hopefully we'll get a lot of fun things taking place on that anniversary show, and I'm sure we're going to get more legends and more names announced. As far as this week's Raw goes, it opened up with a Kurt Angle promo, and this is his first chance to respond after SmackDown attacked last week and showed up on Raw and beat the hell out of the whole roster and tore through the locker room, and Raw was literally under siege. So Kurt Angle is out in the ring. He has the entire Raw roster on the stage, and Kurt Angle starts talking about the situation from last week, and then Stephanie McMahon's music hits. This is the first time we've seen her since WrestleMania. She comes out to the ring and initially compliments Kurt Angle, says that he earned her respect at TLC when he returned to the ring and kicked ass out there, and then she immediately turned into the cunt that we always knew she was. I guess it's kind of like riding a bike. She got right in Kurt Angle's face, and I was immediately pissed off, and I'm like, if this bitch slaps him, I'm gonna lose my shit. Which is what makes her a good heel. The fact that she gets under my skin, personally, she's doing her job. She's an amazing heel, and she's a great character in WWE, but her constant belittling and emasculating of men drives me crazy. She's slapped the shit out of so many people, and it's always led to nothing. So I'm like, please don't slap Kurt. Please don't slap Kurt. And luckily she didn't. And not to mention her theme music. God damn, I hate her theme song. I've hated every theme song Stephanie McMahon has ever had. And every time I hear her stupid music, I just shake my head. I'm like, this is so fucking awful. But anyway, she's out there talking shit to Kurt, belittling him, and she tells him that he better be ready to fight at Survivor Series because he will captain the Raw team. And also goes on to say that if Team Raw loses, then she will be looking for a new Raw general manager, essentially saying that Kurt Angle will be fired if Raw loses that match. So I had a feeling that was going to happen. I mentioned last week when Kurt Angle and Shane McMahon had that interaction backstage, I immediately tweeted it out. I'm like, well, there you go. Shane and Kurt are going to be on their respective teams. And not only are they going to be on their respective teams, but they are both going to be the captain, as we would see on SmackDown, which I will talk about here in just a little bit. So Stephanie McMahon has laid down the law on Kurt Angle. She's pissed at him. She talked to him like a complete asshole and said that if he loses, he's going to be fired. So Stephanie's back, and I guess we'll see more of her in the future. I don't know, though. I mean, part of me thinks that Raw has got a really good chance to win this match because if they lose and Kurt Angle is ousted as general manager, that means Raw will be on its third GM since the brand split. That's too many. SmackDown has still been sticking with Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan the whole time. Raw is a lot more traumatic. There's a lot more turmoil going on Raw, it seems, especially with Stephanie McMahon in charge because she's such a bitch. She can't get along with anybody. She belittled and fired Mick Foley. She may be doing the same thing to Kurt Angle now. And then you're going to have another general manager that's just going to be treated like shit by her as well. So right now, I think Kurt Angle might hang on to his job. Plus, if it's his first match back, as the Olympic hero Kurt Angle, with the music and the singlet and the gold medals, not the Shield Kurt Angle, then I think it's a situation where he should win. Maybe he locks Shane McMahon in the ankle lock and that's the finish, and Shane McMahon is tapping out. Maybe they go in that direction. I have no idea. Lots of time to speculate on this match. We still don't have the teams completely set yet. We only have one person announced for Raw, or two, I should say, and nearly SmackDown's entire team has already been announced. So we got a little bit more to work out as far as the Raw team goes. Still don't know the status of Roman Reigns. I'm guessing that he is going to find his way on that team. I think that's why they're going to drag this out as long as possible, because if he's healthy, he'll be on that team. If he's not, then they're going to have to figure something else out, and I'm sure they'll be fine without him. It's going to be a pretty star-studded match, regardless of Roman is there or not, but I think WWE is just holding out to see what winds up happening with Roman Reigns. So if he's healthy enough to work the show, I think he'll probably show up on the Go Home Raw or something like that and be announced as the fifth and final man. And so far, I'm actually okay with the way this 5-on-5 match is shaping up. I think it can be a lot of fun. Last year's match was awesome, and so far in the build, I'm really excited to actually see this 5-on-5 match because at first I wasn't too keen on the idea, but I like the way the build is going so far, and we'll have to wait and see what happens next week. We would see several returns on Monday Night Raw, not only from Stephanie, but also Nia Jax came back to have a one-on-one match versus Bayley. She defeated her, and after the match, Alicia, who won a match last week to become the Raw captain of the women's team at Survivor Series. She's out there dressed in a cute little captain's outfit, which I loved. Thought she looked great in that. And said that since she's the captain, that she is recruiting and that she is drafting Nia Jax to the Raw team. So Alicia wants Nia as her first pick. So good to see Nia Jax back. She was given that short leave of absence to, I don't know, maybe it was burnout or maybe she just needed to take care of some issues personally, but whatever it was, she's back now, and she'll be on that 5-woman team at Survivor Series. Right after that, Samoa Joe immediately comes out. He's also made his return. So this is the third return in the first hour, basically, of Monday Night Raw, and comes out and gets on the mic and kind of heals on the fans, makes them think that he's gracious at first for all the love of them welcoming him back, and then he says he didn't miss those fans at all. He thinks that they're pieces of shit, and basically says that every time he faces an opponent, he's going to pretend that he's beating the hell out of the fans. So really his only storyline motivation right now to go out and kick ass is the fact that he hates the fans for some reason. So that to me screams that they don't know what they're going to do with Samoa Joe. I don't know if he's going to wind up finding his way onto that Raw team or not. In the meantime, he has a match with Apollo Crews. Apollo puts up kind of a decent fight. Eventually, he has to tap out to Samoa Joe's Coquina Clutch. After that, Titus O'Neil gets in the ring as well, and Samoa Joe attacks him and puts him in the clutch. So hopefully, whatever this feud is, it'll be very short-lived. Next week, maybe Joe takes on Titus, or maybe he takes on Apollo Crews in a rematch, and then he kicks both their asses again. I don't know. All I know is I hope Joe does not keep fucking around with the Titus brand for too long. He's a much bigger player on the roster than to be involved in this mid-card storyline. We then had Asuka squashing a jobber. Can't even remember what this girl's name was, but it basically was a match that I thought that they would do with Asuka from the start. I mean, this is what I thought Asuka would do to Emma, and then they would have some of these matches on Raw over the next few weeks, kind of like what they did with Nia Jax and Braun Strowman, how they would just beat the hell out of jobbers. I think it takes Asuka something like 2 minutes to beat this girl, so they're going to give Asuka some jobber matches, I guess, now, just to continue to build the importance of Asuka, and eventually that will lead to a title match in the future at some time. And I don't know if she's going to be in the Women's Survivor Series match or not. I hope that she is, because I think it would be really cool for her to be in there and kick everybody's ass. Like, Asuka needs to be the sole survivor of that team. I think that would be the perfect type of victory for her. Have all of the other ladies get eliminated. Maybe it's her and Charlotte. Man, I don't know if they want to give us that too quick. As much as I would love to see Asuka and Charlotte, I don't know if I'm ready to see them one-on-one, the final two in the Survivor Series match. Hold that off until WrestleMania, but if they were the final two in there and Asuka beats her, man, that would be a pretty big win for not only Asuka, but Monday Night Raw. So I'm kind of intrigued what they're going to do in the future with Asuka, especially as it pertains to Survivor Series. And speaking of Asuka and the women, of course, Emma, we all know by now, was released by WWE on Sunday, along with Darren Young and Summer Rae. And I talked a little bit about this in my Q&A. As a matter of fact, it was one of the first subjects that I discussed on Sunday. And basically, I think we are all just really disappointed about Emma. I think we all agree that she was grossly underutilized. She did not live up to her potential. WWE had issues with her. She had heat with the company. The Emelina thing didn't work out. She's even tweeted out her frustration in the past. So Emma just really wasn't on good terms at all with management. And don't forget, she was already released once before, and the fans rushed to her defense. Remember when she stole that iPad case or whatever from Walmart or whatever it is, and WWE let her go, and the fans lost their shit, and WWE decided to, I think, suspend her instead, and they ended up bringing her back. But since they brought her back, she's never been able to return to form. She was amazing in NXT, and she's over, and the fans like her, and she's not horrible on the mic. And her latest gimmick, I kind of like, the way she's all self-centered and the way she's constantly worried about social media and Twitter, and all of this. To me, that gimmick, although it wasn't perfect, it was still a lot better for her than what Emelina was. So whatever the case was, WWE just had a problem with Emma. They needed to get her out of there. I thought that she was maybe starting to build some more momentum because she gave Asuka a couple of really good matches, especially at TLC. Had a really good showing for herself. It wasn't a squash like we all thought. I mean, Emma is somebody who on the Raw roster is essentially a jobber. She loses pretty much every week. Why she gave Asuka such a run for her money, I don't know. I thought that was a positive sign for Emma. Okay, maybe WWE is going to start finally doing something with her. Maybe WWE is going to finally start acknowledging that this girl can actually work in the ring and put her in some meaningful matches. And I thought taking Asuka to the limit was a good way to start that. And then 1 week later, they fire her. So WWE really annoys me sometimes with this. Like I said, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that we don't know about. You know, once management gets a sour taste in their mouth about you, sometimes there's no recovering from that. I did read that the door was open for Emma to return in the future, so maybe Emma can go off, make some indie appearances. I don't know. Whatever goes on with Emma's future, I just wish her nothing but the best. I think that she got a raw deal from day one. I thought WWE treated her like crap. That she just never did anything. They never did anything with somebody that was such a good talent. The other two releases I can kind of understand. Darren Young really disappointed me because I liked him. You know, I thought that it was cool that he could have been one of the first like openly gay wrestlers to come out and actually have some success. And a lot of fans don't care that he was let go. And I really don't either because he wasn't that big of a star on the roster. WWE really never did anything with him other than the primetime players, even though they tried a couple of times with the Bob Backlund thing. Just never seemed to really work out for Darren Young. So I cannot say that I'm surprised Darren Young got released. And I don't think it had anything to do with WWE having any sort of issues or heat with him like it was with Emma. I think he was just literally a guy that WWE was not using at all, and they decided to trim some fat. And those are the type of releases that happen from time to time. And as far as Summer Rae goes, you know, same thing. You know, another talent that they weren't really using. She had her moments in WWE, but I don't think she was nearly as good in the ring as some of those other ladies are. And she seems like someone that was more suited for the Diva era, the Kelly era. She seemed like more like one of those type of girls rather than a, you know, credible wrestler. So I can understand why they let Summer Rae go as well, much like Darren Young. They just weren't doing anything with her. The Emma thing surprises all of us because she was just on TV a week ago wrestling one of WWE's top women and having a good showing in that match as well. And then they wind up firing her. So I also have to mention Lio Rush from NXT. I talked about this in my Q&A as well, who tweeted out mocking Emma's release. He said something to the effect of, "Oh, I guess that's what happens when you're not truly ready for Asuka." What a little dickbag. What the hell's your problem, punk? I mean, what the hell? He's 22 years old, unimaginably immature. The fact that he even tweeted something like that out against a coworker, somebody that's lost their job, lost their livelihood, lost their ability to pay their bills and support themselves, and he's going to make fun of it. You know, I don't think that he understands that this is real life. I watched his debut match in NXT, and I could not believe the athleticism of this kid. So, you know, I mentioned in my Q&A on Sunday that I'm going to give him a pass just because he's a 22-year-old idiot. And I think we all have done and said things when we were young that we regret. And this is going to be one of those instances. I'm sure he was giving a stern talking to when he showed his stupid face back at the Performance Center. I'm sure they sat him down and tried to wise him up. And he needs to learn that, you know, immaturity is the worst thing you can have in the wrestling business. You do not want to be that way. You do not want to come off that way. And I think because he's so young and he's so stupid that he can get a pass just based on his stupidity. So, Lio Rush, even though I think you're a little piece of shit for tweeting that, I'm not going to bury you. I'm not going to hate you for the rest of your life. It was just a tweet. It was just a stupid mistake. And I believe in second chances. And I don't think that this kid should necessarily be fired for what he said because he's young. And young kids don't know how to shut the fuck up on social media. They say whatever is on their mind without thinking first. And a lot of times it comes back to bite them in the ass. Next up on Raw, we had a backstage segment with Kurt Angle and Daniel Bryan shows up. Initially, Kurt Angle thinks that Raw is under siege again and Daniel Bryan is leading the SmackDown roster into Raw to take over again. But that's not why Daniel Bryan is there. Daniel Bryan is playing this very much differently than Shane McMahon. He claims that he didn't know that Shane was going to do that, and he doesn't necessarily agree with it, and he's trying to be the peacekeeper. You know, he basically doesn't have any ill feelings towards Kurt Angle or Monday Night Raw, and was basically there to tell Kurt Angle that, and to kind of half-ass apologize. And then Kurt Angle starts worrying about Daniel Bryan's safety. Dude, you shouldn't be here. The roster is pissed about what happened to them last week. They could all attack you. They could kill you. You need to stay here. He basically holds Daniel Bryan hostage and tells him not to leave his office. And then this is when it gets really stupid. Daniel Bryan is on the phone in one of the most poorly acted fake phone calls I've ever heard. And then the lights go out and Daniel Bryan is like, I don't know what's going on. Oh my God, I might have to call you back. And it's just so bad. You know, you can get really good at faking phone calls whenever you want to avoid grocery store solicitors. You know what I'm talking about? Whenever you're walking into the store, there's always some assholes in front of the entrance trying to sell you shit. So whenever I see those people, I always just pretend like I'm on my phone. Like, oh, sorry, can't be bothered. Maybe Daniel Bryan should work on that and work on his acting because it was the worst thing I've ever seen. And basically the light from his phone shows Kane looking right at his face. So when the lights go out, it was Kane that was in the room with him, and they're former tag team partners, of course, but Kane grabs Daniel Bryan by the throat, and then you hear a loud crash with the lights off, and essentially Kane, I think, choke slammed Daniel Bryan through a table or something, but we never saw the bump because Daniel Bryan can't take any bumps. And speaking of that, how bad does it suck for Daniel Bryan to have to sit here and watch Shane McMahon and Kurt Angle, somebody who has had several broken necks throughout his career, wrestle in a match that Daniel Bryan could easily be in? I just wish WWE would have the guts to let this guy wrestle. He wants to. He is going to wrestle again. Wouldn't you just rather have it be with you? I know WWE can't afford to take that risk with Daniel Bryan. If something were to happen to him, then, it would all fall on their shoulders, essentially. But what's going to wind up happening is Daniel Bryan's contract is going to expire next year, and he's going to go back and wrestle in Ring of Honor or New Japan or something like that. So just seeing Daniel Bryan not being able to participate in these matches, especially when he's being attacked by someone like Kane, you're like, oh shit, maybe Daniel Bryan will be on the SmackDown team. No, he won't, unfortunately, and it really sucks. And I just think for Daniel Bryan personally, it's probably got to be kind of hard being involved in these segments, knowing that he can never get physical and he can never get in the ring with the WWE again. And that's just a huge shame. It's one of my biggest regrets in WWE is that we are probably never going to be able to see Daniel Bryan wrestle in a WWE ring again. It's going to have to be somewhere else. So Daniel Bryan was then carted off on a stretcher, and Kane had a big influence on this show. Next up, we had Finn Balor taking on Cesaro. Finn Balor won this match with a double stomp to the back of Cesaro's neck. Not really the coup de grace, but a similar move to where he just nailed Cesaro pretty hard, got the 1-2-3 and the victory. As he's celebrating and walking up on the stage, Kane shows back up, attacks Finn Balor on the stage, gives him this tombstone pile driver on the stage as well, and then goes right into the ring to take on Seth Rollins in a one-on-one match, and then he beats Seth Rollins, winds up beating him with a choke slam. Cesaro and Sheamus are out there during the match. They're getting all involved. Dean Ambrose is out there too. After the match, you see everybody get involved, and Kane eventually gets his hands on Dean Ambrose and gives him a tombstone, and then also gives Rollins one for good measure when Rollins was trying to protect Dean Ambrose. So Kane is on a tear. He defeated Finn Balor last week. He defeated Seth Rollins this week. He injured Daniel Bryan, and WWE is gearing up, obviously, for a very big storyline involving Kane. And I pitched the idea last week in episode 464 about Kane having a retirement program with Braun Strowman. To me, Kane is way past his prime. He's been in the WWE as this character for 20 years. I think now is a perfect time for him to retire, and Braun Strowman is the perfect guy to send Kane out the door. I think Kane should ride off into the sunset with a loss to Braun Strowman, put over this monster, just like The Undertaker did for Roman Reigns, and I think that would be a perfect way for Kane to wrap up his career. So hopefully, this big push and him getting all these victories, because remember, last week people flipped out when he beat Finn Balor. And now Finn Balor is right back to his winning ways. He ends up beating Cesaro in a match, and then Kane beats Seth Rollins. So I defended the Finn Balor loss last week because I said it's probably being done to give Kane some significant victories over quality guys. So to me, this is all just part of the build to whatever big angle they're pushing here with Kane. But I hope it winds up leading to Kane retiring and this being his final program with the company, because I just think it's time. Glenn Jacobs has got a lot going on in his life, and he's, what is he, 50 years old now or something? He just needs to, wrap it up. So I'm hoping that this eventually leads to that. Next up, we had Heath Slater and Rhino defeating Tex Ferguson and Chad Too Bad. Gallows and Anderson came out there dressed up as those guys, which was fucking awesome. But it was a horrible match. Every fucking holiday, every Halloween, every Thanksgiving or something like that, they have to have some stupid gimmick match with a whole bunch of props. Gallows has got a big giant pumpkin on his head during some of this. Really bad pumpkin spots because he's trying to hold the thing on his head so it wouldn't fall off, and it just looked horrible. It was a terrible match, and I hated everything about it. We had another segment with Elias and Jason Jordan. I'm really liking Elias a lot. He gets a lot of heat from the crowd. I like his songs, the way he shits on all the towns that he's in. And I'm really finding myself enjoying Elias. I hope that he can move on to bigger feuds and spots on the card in the future. I think this guy, given the right storylines and given the right push and being treated properly, could wind up being a pretty big star in the WWE. That's just my early prediction. I think he could be a main event player if they play their cards right. And he's in the ring again, trying to play another song. He said there's no way Jason Jordan is going to interrupt him this week because he bashed the guitar through his head last week. And of course, as he's doing his song, Jason Jordan comes out anyway, runs off Elias, and then takes his guitar and smashes it. So these guys will have another match next week on Raw, Survivor Series, something like that. I don't know. But I'm ready for this feud to wrap up because even though I really like Elias, I'm not too into this angle with him and Jason Jordan. Kalisto defeated Drew Gulick in a one-on-one match. Really awesome promo with Drew Gulick and Enzo. I really like the dynamic between the two, and I love how nerdy and white Drew Gulick comes off and the way he does all those catchphrases. And then even when he spelled soft, S-O-F-T, soft, was one of the funniest things. I mean, if it was up to me, I would have Drew Gulick doing that every week. He's really good on the mic, and he is really good at playing that character, and I think him and Enzo actually complement each other quite well. And they're probably the best act currently on the 205 Live roster. We'll move on to the final segment now. First of all, we'll backtrack a little bit. I skipped over the Miz and Matt Hardy match because I wanted to talk about it at the end. Earlier on Raw, the Miz had to defend the Intercontinental title against Matt Hardy. Kurt Angle made this match backstage when the Miz showed up late to Raw, right after Stephanie was done chewing Kurt out. So Kurt says, you're going to defend the IC title in a match later on. That opponent turns out to be Matt Hardy. Miz beats him pretty much clean. The Miz-Taraj is out there getting involved, but Miz ends up clotheslining Matt Hardy on the top rope and then nails him with the skull-crushing finale for the win there. Later on, the Miz is backstage with the Miz-Taraj. Bo Dallas, incidentally, is back. He's back from all of his time off. Really good to see him back with the Miz and Curtis Axel. And they wind up going into the locker room where they find a bag of trash. The Miz has got some champagne and everything set up for them to celebrate. And then when they walk in, there's just a bag of trash sitting in the middle of the locker room. And the Miz immediately is like, oh shit, he's here. And they're like, no way, it's not Braun Strowman. We crushed him in the back of a garbage truck. He's going to be out for months, if not forever. There's no way he's going to come back in 1 week. The Miz doesn't believe it. He's incredibly nervous. And he tells the guys to pack up their shit and they're going to get the hell out of there. And that's when Kurt Angle says, no, you got to stay until the end of the show and you're not going anywhere. You showed up late. You're not going to leave early. So the Miz is freaked out. And then he goes around and tries to talk to everybody. He talks to Kane. He talks to Cesaro and Sheamus, tries to pass the buck on to Kane. You know, Kane did most of the work. And I'm really glad that I'm on your team and all of this. And both guys, Kane and Cesaro and Sheamus, all tell him that they're not on the same team and that the Miz is on his own. So the Miz is scared shitless that Braun Strowman is going to show up and kill him later. The main event was actually a women's title match, which I liked. Alexa Bliss took on Mickie James for the title, beat Mickie again. This time just beat her with a straight right hand. Just a wild, crazy punch to the face, knocked Mickie completely out. Alexa Bliss pinned her 1, 2, 3, and that's the end of that. So from here, I don't know what they do with Mickie James. If she is going to continue to be that sickening baby face, oh, I'm just going to keep fighting and get back on that horse and dust myself off and all that shit, or if she's going to go heel and maybe have another heel run before maybe she finally retires. After the match, however, as soon as the finish happens, as soon as Alexa Bliss gets the pin on Mickie James, they cut to backstage, and the Miz-Taraj is literally running out of the arena. They pack up their bags. They were waiting for the show to end. They're trying to get out of there. They all jump in a car together, and this was like so overproduced. I actually didn't like it. It was clearly all taped earlier on in the day, and they're all in the car there. They're all in the limo. It reminded me of when Stephanie, what was it when The Undertaker kidnapped Stephanie back in like 99 during the Ministry of Darkness days? And they got Stephanie in the limo, and then The Undertaker was in the driver's seat, and he turns around and goes, where to, Stephanie? I thought for sure that Braun Strowman was going to be behind the wheel, and he was going to do something similar. But instead, the entire Miz-Taraj is in the back seat, and the car is trying to leave, and then a garbage truck starts backing in, blocking their exit out of the arena. The truck starts moving and all the trash is being like spilled out of the truck. And then they just cut to the shot where Braun Strowman just stands up in the front of the car. So you don't even really see him come out of the garbage truck. It was just kind of edited and put together where it just looked a little bit hokey. And of course, the Miz-Taraj freaks out. They get out of the car and Braun Strowman chases him through the garage area all the way back to the ring. They wind up out on the stage. And Braun is just killing everybody. He's tossing Bo around, Axel around, tosses the Miz around, gets them all in the ring. Eventually, the Miz is able to get out of there. Braun picks him up for the big power slam. Miz escapes and scrambles out of the ring, leaving Curtis Axel in there all by himself. And Braun Strowman just demolishes him. Hits him with a power slam. The fans chant one more time. Hits him with another one. They chant one more time. Hits him with a third one. And then he picks him up after 3 power slams, carries him up the ramp, and power slams slams him through the announce table for good measure. So Braun Strowman completely destroyed Curtis Axel, much to the delight of the fans. And you got to wonder, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but was this a babyface turn? You know they're going to gear up for something with him and Kane. And Kane's been defeating a lot of babyfaces on Raw. He injured Daniel Bryan in that backstage segment, so clearly Kane is a heel, Braun's a babyface. And this could be a big epic match between the two of them when they finally collide in whatever they wind up doing. And Braun Strowman is officially on the Raw team now. So far it's Braun Strowman and Kurt Angle taking on the SmackDown team, and we will have more announcements as to who will be the other three guys probably in the future. Like I said, WWE is probably waiting to see what happens and transpires with Roman Reigns. If he's able to be on the five-man team, then he will. They could also add Samoa Joe. They can't add Seth Rollins or Dean Ambrose because they have a tag team match at Survivor Series, so you might be looking at Finn Balor perhaps. So, if it was up to me, I might say it would probably be Kurt Angle, Braun Strowman, Finn Balor, Samoa Joe, and Roman Reigns. Maybe Kane is another option to be on that team, but I don't know if he's going to be able to coexist with Braun Strowman either. So, there's a lot to be decided here still on Monday Night Raw, and I like the way a lot of these storylines or a lot of these angles are kind of overlapping because there's so much going on with Braun Strowman and The Miz and Braun Strowman and Kane and Braun Strowman on the 5-on-5 team and what Kane is going to wind up doing and all of this stuff. And I kind of like the feel of Monday Night Raw. It feels a little jumbled and clusterfucky, but in a weird way it almost works. It's kind of what I like about it. And I'm pretty optimistic about Survivor Series so far. Moving on to SmackDown now. Shane McMahon opened up the show with a promo, and basically after he talked for about 10 minutes, he announced that he will be the team captain of SmackDown. So you got Angle captaining on one side, and you got Shane captaining the other. So far, all they had up until that point was Shane McMahon and Randy Orton being announced for the team. They would have a couple of other qualifiers for that team on SmackDown. The first one was Bobby Roode defeating Dolph Ziggler in a 2 out of 3 falls match. This was advertised last week. Dolph Ziggler won the first fall, Bobby Roode won the second 2, and won the final fall with his DDT finisher and got the pin there. So Bobby Roode, even though he has not been that exciting to me as a babyface so far on the SmackDown brand, I'm glad that he found his way onto the 5-man team at Survivor Series, and this match with Dolph Ziggler in the ring was very good. My one pet peeve, though, about Dolph Ziggler is this new gimmick of his, or this lack thereof, I should say. The fact that he's coming out to no music, no lighting treatment, nothing like that. If he's going to have no music, then he needs to fucking have no music. I hate the fact that they start his theme, and then they do that record screeching sound effect and cuts it off, and then the lights go out and he walks out to the ring. That's all they need to do. They don't need to start the music and do that. It's WWE's way of having their cake and eat it too, one fan put it to me. And that's true. It's what they're doing. To me, if Dolph Ziggler has this big problem with all of these elaborate entrances and these theme songs, then he needs to come out to nothing. Don't start a song. Don't do anything. When it's Dolph's turn to come out to the ring, turn the lights off and have him walk out there. That's all you need to do. So it's just a pet peeve of mine. It's something that bothers me about this new gimmick that Dolph has. But the match was good between the two really good in-ring workers. 2 out of 3 falls match was fun. Roode gets the victory, and he'll be on that SmackDown team. And hopefully after Survivor Series in the future, going into next year, we can turn this guy heel. And how awesome did the New Day look on SmackDown? Holy shit, of course, SmackDown aired on Halloween night, and the New Day is dressed up, get this, Xavier Woods is dressed up as Jimmy Hart, Big E is dressed up as Akeem, and Kofi Kingston is dressed up as Brother Love. Painted his face completely red, looked awesome, looked hilarious. They're in a backstage segment with Rusev and Aiden English. Rusev and English approaches the New Day, yells at them about dressing up like idiots after what they did to Raw last week, and says that they are at war and they need to take this more seriously. And New Day's like, hey, calm down, we're ready to fight. And Rusev then goes on to insult Halloween, says it's a stupid holiday for stupid, stupid children, and that every day should be Rusev Day. That's the only day that matters. And then English sings the Rusev Day thing, and then Rusev even yanks the candy out of Big E's hand, dumps it on the ground and stomps it, which really pisses off Big E, and Big E then challenges him to a one-on-one match in the ring later on. And Rusev incidentally actually won that match. Aiden English gets up on the announce table during the match and starts singing to distract everybody. Everybody kind of gets involved in this match a little bit. Eventually, Rusev is able to catch Big E with his kick and gets the 1-2-3 for the win. He then approaches Shane McMahon backstage and says that he wants to be on the SmackDown team at Survivor Series. Shane says he appreciates it, but he's still going to have to do a little bit more to earn that spot and makes a one-on-one match next week between Rusev and AJ Styles, the winner will be on the 5-man SmackDown team at Survivor Series. So we have that match to look forward to next week. Speaking of AJ Styles, he took on, I think it was Samir Singh, and ended up beating him in about 10 seconds with the Styles Clash. Jinder immediately attacks AJ after the match, and all three of them beat the hell out of AJ. Jinder cuts a pretty decent pre-match promo on Brock Lesnar before the match, but still a lot of the same stuff that we've already seen from Jinder before, and he's still not doing anything to make me believe that he has any sort of chance in hell of defeating the Beast at Survivor Series. I also don't know if we should expect to see an AJ Styles versus Jinder Mahal title match before Survivor Series. To me, I've mentioned in my last couple of commentaries that it seems like that's what they have been building towards, that this is just a time-killing feud to give Jinder Mahal something to do, and eventually it will lead to a challenge and a title match on SmackDown 1 week before Survivor Series. Maybe the go-home show would be a perfect place for that. Don't know if that's still in the plans yet or not, because next week we've got AJ taking on Rusev for a spot on the SmackDown team. I think AJ will probably win that and join SmackDown. I think he should. I really want to see AJ on that team. If he's not on that team, I don't know what he's going to be doing. But maybe if he beats Rusev next week, the week after, he can have another segment with Jinder Mahal, or maybe Jinder gets involved in that Rusev match somehow, maybe costs AJ the match, I don't know. And then the week after that, AJ can challenge Jinder, and they will have a SmackDown World Title match in the main event leading up to Survivor Series for to try to spark a big rating. So to me, that's all I really saw out of this AJ Styles and Jinder Mahal program. But now that AJ is working with Rusev next week, I don't know what the hell they're going to do. Baron Corbin and Sin Cara had another interesting match. This is like the third or fourth week in a row that they've worked together. Sin Cara has won a couple of these matches by countout or DQ, I believe. And Baron Corbin seems to be really obsessed with Sin Cara's mask. And once the match starts, Baron Corbin tries to tear the mask off of Sin Cara. This makes Sin Cara snap. He flips out, goes completely apeshit, beats the hell out of Baron Corbin on the outside of the ring, will not stop punching him. The referee eventually calls for the bell. I believe this was a double count out, but I'm not sure. And it seems like they're really playing up the mask angle here, and I'm wondering if they have any plans to unmask Sin Cara in the future for whatever reason. It looks like they're going to start pushing him. I think somebody had told me that Sin Cara had recently re-signed with the company, so maybe this is a new push for him. I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I didn't really find Sin Cara to be a credible opponent or a credible challenger for the U.S. title simply because they have not done anything with Sin Cara in a very long time. But if he's got a new contract and WWE wants to make use of him and get some money and return on their investment, this might be a way to do that. I don't know if they will have a mask match. Maybe it's title versus mask or something like that. Maybe Sin Cara winds up dethroning Baron Corbin. I mean, Kalisto was the U.S. champion, so why can't Sin Cara be? So this feud might actually turn out to be bigger than I thought it was initially going to be. At first, I didn't know what the hell they were going to do, and now it's starting to come to light that WWE is actually pushing Sin Cara, and they're really playing up Corbin's obsession with unmasking him, which makes me think it could lead to a title versus mask match. Maybe a hair versus mask match, because that hair on Baron Corbin, something needs to be done about that. But Baron Corbin's the champ. Maybe he'll eventually drop the belt to Sin Cara when he puts his mask on the line. I don't think that they should unmask Sin Cara. I really don't. If they do, I don't know what the point of it would be and where it would go. So if it was up to me, I would keep the mask on Sin Cara for as long as possible and indefinitely. We had a lot of funny backstage segments this week on SmackDown. Not only did we have the New Day looking hilarious in their Halloween costumes, we also had a women's segment as well. There was no women's matches on this week's SmackDown. You had Becky Lynch backstage trying to rally the troops, trying to give them a pep talk and say that they're going to kick Raw's ass and blah, blah, blah. Backstage, the funniest part of this was James Ellsworth being on a leash and dressing as a dog. And I think Carmella makes him bark or something like that. It was kind of funny. Poor James Ellsworth. We also had the Usos and Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin, where Shelton and Gable informed the Usos that Shane McMahon has granted them a tag team title shot next week on SmackDown. So we're going to get the Usos versus Benjamin and Gable next week. The funniest part of this promo was when Chad Gable started rapping and then Shelton Benjamin did that reaction meme thing. We've all seen it, where that guy puts the hands over his face and walks off camera. He did that perfectly. I thought that was really well done, and it cracked me the fuck up. I wish that I watched Stranger Things. I talked a little bit about TV shows in my Q&A on Sunday. A lot of you guys were like, hey, do you watch this show? Do you watch that show? And I got to be honest with you, I don't really watch anything. There's really no shows that I watch right now. I know that I'm missing out. Trust me, I know. All of my friends think I'm absolutely insane for never watching Breaking Bad, for not knowing anything about Game of Thrones, and for not watching Stranger Things. Apparently, these are all really, really good shows, but I just don't watch them. I'm too busy. I'm always at work. I'm always working on commentary stuff or YouTube channel stuff, and I've just got a lot going on, it seems like, so I just don't ever find time to really watch any shows anymore. I eyeball sports, and that's really all I do. So I know that I suck, and I know I'm missing out, and unfortunately, this Stranger-er things, I should say, parody that they did on SmackDown went right over my head because I don't know the characters. And it looked like they're kind of gearing up for a Saw parody next week, the way the whole thing ended with the lights surrounding the Bludgeon Brothers photo on the bulletin board and all of that. So even though I don't know anything about Stranger Things, I still found this segment very entertaining, and they seem to be really well done and really well put together. I mean, a lot of effort goes into putting together these little skits, and they're pretty funny. I actually got to say that I enjoy everything that Breezango does pretty much every week on SmackDown. Really good stuff. The main event saw Shinsuke Nakamura taking on Kevin Owens in a really good match, and Shinsuke got the victory here. This match was to determine the next member of the SmackDown team. Nakamura ended up hitting Owens with his finisher and getting the win. Sami Zayn came out to try to distract Shinsuke. He even started taking the table apart at one time. And did you see the way he hit the fan in the face with the top of the table? Sammy picked that little protective covering off the top and threw it off to the side, and it actually landed up against the guardrail and smacked a fan right in the face. I got a big kick out of that. Hopefully that fan enjoyed that and didn't sue. I got injured one time at a house show years ago, back in 1998, I think it was. It was in Charlotte or Greensboro. I forgot where I was. It was just a house show, and I was in the front row. And Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock had a no-holds-barred match against each other. They were all over the ring and the ringside area, and eventually Austin clotheslined The Rock over the guardrail. That was back when they had those like metal bar guardrails, the one that would move. The big black ones don't move at all now. But Austin like threw The Rock into it. The Rock hit the guardrail came flying back and smacked me really hard in the elbow. And my elbow went on to hurt for like 2 or 3 weeks after that, and I had a really big bruise on it. But you know what? I didn't care. I was so happy that I got hurt by The Rock. And every time somebody would say, hey, what happened to your elbow? I'm like, oh, The Rock did it. You know, it was just a fun story to tell. So hopefully that fan who got hit in the face enjoyed taking a hit from a WWE star, and he's not suing WWE or anything like that. But Sammy was out there trying to distract everybody, and that's when Randy Orton's music hit, and he shows up. He shows up right behind Sami Zayn on the outside of the ring, slams him on the table, ruining his efforts to get involved in this match, and that allowed Shinsuke to hit the kick and get the pin on Kevin Owens, and Shinsuke and Randy Orton are now officially joining Shane McMahon and Bobby Roode on the SmackDown team. So you have 4 out of the 5 spots filled. Next week will be the final one, AJ Styles versus Rusev. We can only assume it'll probably be AJ Styles getting that spot on the 5-man team, which means Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are off the team. And right away, already, there's a lot of speculation that what could wind up happening is Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens costing SmackDown the match somehow against Raw, which would give them a lot of heat as heels, and they already have a lot, and they're hilarious together. And I love the backstage segment they had between the two of them when they said, hey, if we beat Shinsuke tonight, it's going to be the Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn show. And then Kevin Owens corrects Sami and says, no, it's going to be the Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens show. And Sami just immediately started grinning as Kevin Owens walks off. So these two are completely in love with each other, and I think it's hilarious, and I love the dynamic between the two. I love Sami as a heel, and now, currently, they really have nothing to do at Survivor Series, so they're either going to be thrown into a match at the last minute, or they're going to find themselves getting involved in the 5-on-5 match versus Raw, and they might actually cost their own brand the match. And it would be a way to give SmackDown the loss without them having to really lose face at the same time, and it might be a good way for the finish to go. So I guess it could still go a lot of different ways, but right now a lot of fans are kind of speculating that that could be the way that it ends. So that will pretty much do it for me this week. I think I talked about everything I needed to talk about. There hasn't been a whole lot of other wrestling news going on. As far as next week goes, I'll be up here normal time with my Raw and SmackDown reviews. If I can find time to do a Q&A this weekend, I will. As of right now, I'm working all of these days, so don't count on it. But maybe if I'm off like next Monday or something like that, maybe I'll do a live Raw review or something like that. Like I said, that will not take the place of my normal podcast videos, but maybe if I'm up on Monday night, I'll just come up and we'll shoot the shit and discuss Monday Night Raw casually for maybe an hour or so, just to give me some more practice on my live streams. So keep a lookout for that possibility. Not 100% sure if I'm going to be able to do that yet, but I will if I can. So you guys have a great rest of your week. Thank you for everything. Thank you for listening. Leave me all your comments on Raw, SmackDown, and Survivor Series in the comments below, and I will talk to you guys very, very soon. So until next time, peace.